At 91, I'm still here, and most people I grew up with are not. Every morning I sit by the window and watch the light slowly crawl across the floor. It's quiet now. Too quiet. When you live this long, silence becomes familiar. Not because life is empty, but because so many voices have faded away. I've attended more funerals after turning 60 than I ever imagined I would. Men who were stronger than me, women who were sharper than me, people who had more money, better doctors, better plans. One by one they disappeared. Heart attacks, strokes, falls, sudden illnesses. That's what everyone said. For a long time I believed I was just lucky. Good genes, good timing, maybe God's favor. But the older I got, the harder it became to ignore the truth. Luck doesn't repeat itself for 30 years. What I began to notice, quietly, painfully, was a pattern. Most of the people I lost didn't die because they were old. They died because something inside them had already given up. Their bodies followed later. After 60, they stopped moving. They stopped paying attention. They stopped caring. Little habits crept in, harmless at first, then deadly. I didn't survive to 91 by fighting death. I survived because, somewhere after 60, I made a decision. I would not slowly disappear while still breathing. And there are 5 habits, 5 silent killers, I chose to avoid. Most people never realize them until it's too late. The moment that changed everything didn't come with sirens or hospital lights. It came quietly. I was 62 years old, sitting at a funeral for a man who had been my closest friend for more than 3 decades. We grew up together, worked side by side, retired within the same year. He was only 2 years older than me, and everyone said he was doing fine. He wasn't. After retirement, his days slowly collapsed into a chair, a television, and excuses. He stopped walking because his knees ached. He stopped calling because he didn't want to bother anyone. He stopped caring about what he ate, how he slept, or whether tomorrow even mattered. One morning, tomorrow never came. Standing beside his grave, something inside me cracked. Not fear, clarity. I realized aging wasn't what killed him. Surrender did. That's when I understood the most dangerous lie people believe after 60, that decline is natural, unavoidable, and acceptable. It isn't. Aging is real. Weakness happens, but giving up is a choice, and it's a lethal one. That day I made myself a quiet promise. I didn't swear to live forever. I didn't chase youth. I simply decided this. As long as I was breathing, I would stay engaged. I would move. I would pay attention. I would treat each day as something that still required my participation. That decision didn't make me younger. It kept me alive. The first thing I noticed after 60 wasn't illness. It was stillness. Men who used to wake up early now stayed in their chairs all day. Women who once moved constantly began measuring life in television shows and meal times. Retirement, for many, became permission to stop moving. They didn't call it giving up. They called it rest. But the body doesn't understand rest the way the mind does. I watched friends lose strength without ever being sick. Their legs weakened. Their balance disappeared. Their confidence shrank. Not because they were old, but because they stopped using what they had. Movement doesn't fade all at once. It fades quietly. One skipped walk. One drive instead of a step. One afternoon spent sitting instead of standing. Over time, the body learns a dangerous lesson. It's no longer needed. I never became an athlete. I never joined a gym. I never chased fitness. But I made myself a rule. I would not stay still for long. I walked every day, even slowly. I stood when I could sit. I carried my own groceries. I stretched while watching the news. Small movements, constant movement. Because after 60, movement is no longer about strength. It's about survival. The people I lost didn't collapse suddenly. They shrank. Their world became smaller, and their bodies followed. I learned something they never did. The body obeys the life you ask it to live. Stop asking it to move and it listens. That's why I kept moving. Not to stay young, but to stay here. After 60, food stops being a pleasure. It becomes a decision. I watched many people my age treat eating like a reward for surviving the day. More sugar, more salt, more comfort. At this age, they said, what does it matter? It matters more than ever. When the body is younger, it can forgive mistakes. When you're older, it keeps records. Every heavy meal, every processed snack, every late-night indulgence adds weight, not just to the body, but to the heart, the joints, the mind. I didn't follow diets. I didn't count calories. I didn't punish myself. I simplified. I ate less, more slowly. I paid attention to how food made me feel instead of how it tasted. I stopped eating out of boredom and started eating with intention. Most of the people I lost didn't die from one bad meal. They died from thousands of careless ones. After 60, digestion slows. Inflammation lingers. Blood sugar becomes unforgiving. What you eat either supports your remaining strength or quietly drains it. I noticed something simple. The heavier people ate, the heavier life felt. Their mornings were harder, their movement slower, their thinking foggier. Food became weight they had to carry, so I chose lightness, not hunger, lightness. Because after a certain age, you're not eating to impress anyone, you're eating to remain independent, and independence, I learned, is the true currency of old age. The most dangerous change I saw after 60 wasn't physical, it was social. Phones stopped ringing. Invitations slowed. Children grew busy. Friends moved away or passed on. Slowly, quietly, many people my age began living entire days without speaking to another human being. They told themselves they were fine. They weren't. Isolation doesn't announce itself as pain. It shows up as emptiness, as longer afternoons, as mornings without urgency, as the feeling that no one would notice if you stayed in bed. I watched strong people fade simply because no one was looking at them anymore. Conversation keeps the mind sharp. Presence keeps the spirit upright. When those disappear, the body follows. Memory weakens. Motivation dissolves. Even posture changes. Shoulders curve inward. Eyes stop searching. Loneliness ages faster than time. I understood this early. That's why I refused to disappear quietly. I made myself stay connected, even when it felt uncomfortable. I spoke to neighbors. I kept short conversations alive. I answered calls instead of letting them ring. Sometimes it was only a few words, but words matter. Human beings are not designed to age alone. The people I lost often said the same thing near the end. I didn't want to bother anyone. That sentence breaks my heart, because after 60, connection isn't a luxury. It's medicine. You don't need crowds. You don't need constant company. You only need proof, daily proof, that you still exist in someone else's world. I stayed alive not because I was never lonely, but because I refused to let loneliness convince me I no longer mattered. Of all the things that shorten life after 60, this one is the fastest. Not disease, not age, the loss of purpose. I saw it happen again and again. The moment someone believed their role was finished, their body seemed to agree. They stopped planning, stopped caring what day it was, stopped asking, what am I needed for now? Retirement didn't free them. It erased them. When you no longer feel useful, something inside you shuts down. You wake up later, you move slower, you speak less. Even your breathing feels heavier. I learned early that the body listens closely to the mind's instructions. Tell it you're done, and it begins to prepare for the end. So I never allowed myself to feel unnecessary. My purpose was never grand. I wasn't changing the world. Some days, it was as small as watering plants, checking on a neighbor, reading a page, or being the person who answered the phone. But it mattered. I gave each day a reason to exist. People often ask me, what's your secret to living so long? This is the answer they don't expect. I stayed needed. Purpose doesn't require ambition. It requires direction, a reason to get up, a sense that tomorrow expects something from you. The people I lost didn't die because they were tired. They died because they believed nothing was waiting for them. I refused that belief. As long as I woke up with something to do, no matter how small, my body understood one thing clearly. It was not time to leave yet. Stress doesn't arrive loudly in old age. It settles in. I saw it in the way people watch the news nonstop, in the fear behind every doctor's appointment, in the endless worrying about money, health, children, and a future they could no longer control. After 60, many people begin living as if danger is everywhere. The body doesn't understand that most of these fears are imagined. It only feels the tension, the tightened chest, the shallow breathing, the sleepless nights, and it responds accordingly. I learned something painful but freeing. Carrying the weight of the world at my age served no one, especially not me. So I stopped. I stopped arguing with things I couldn't change. I stopped feeding my mind with constant bad news. I stopped rehearsing disasters that never arrived. Peace, I realized, isn't weakness. It's protection. When I chose calm, my body softened. My heart steadied. My thoughts cleared. Stress had been quietly draining my strength, and letting it go returned more energy than any supplement ever did. The people I lost were not always the sickest. They were often the most worried. Fear ages faster than time. Anxiety keeps the body in a permanent state of emergency, and emergencies are not meant to last decades. I chose a smaller world, a slower pace, a life I could actually carry. That choice didn't make me careless. It made me last. If you're over 60 and listening to me now, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not late. You haven't missed your chance. You don't need to undo your past or become someone new. What matters is what you choose to stop doing, starting today. The people I loved didn't disappear all at once. They faded, slowly, quietly, one habit at a time. They stopped moving. They stopped paying attention. They stopped connecting. They stopped feeling useful. They stopped letting themselves rest from fear. I chose differently, not perfectly, not heroically. I simply refused to die before my body was finished living. I didn't chase youth. I didn't fight age. I respected it, and I listened to what it demanded in return. Movement, simplicity, connection, purpose, peace. That's all. Living longer isn't about adding years. It's about removing the things that are stealing them. One day, you'll sit in silence the way I do now. You'll look back and ask yourself whether you were present for your own life or just waiting for it to end. I'm still here at 91 not because I avoided death, but because I refused to practice it. And if you remember nothing else I've said, remember this. As long as you're breathing, your life is still asking something of you. Answer it.